Okay, top picks over there coming in from Kush. Quick word from Soni as well. Soni, very good morning. Soni Patnaik, JM Financial Services joining in. Let's get your index calls first.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me on the show. I think GIFT Nifty is already implying that, we'll open somewhere around the 23,500. Could be a bit of a resistance anywhere in the range between the 23,500 to 23,600. But very important to remember that this is the final expiry week of March series and rollovers will take over. So I see the range for this last week somewhere between 23,250 to 23,600. Not much of a correction. Could be some minor profit booking, but then again, the structure remains a strong buy on dips. It seems that we may close comfortably above 23,000 for March series, and then the rollovers can take over for April series. I think that buy on dip structure will continue even in the next subsequent series. And stock specific action looks quite strong. Bank Nifty is something that is looking, comparatively better. I think Bank Nifty can head towards a 51,500 odd levels in this week itself. It has held a very strong support towards 50,500 closing. But then I see that, if it continues to hold above a 50,000 mark, it can head towards a 51,500 levels for this week.
Right. So, Soni, then what would you be buying at this hour when you're saying it's going to be stock specific action that will take center stage?
So the first buy comes in CDSL, which is closed very comfortably above a 1210 mark. It is a very strong option chain breakout on a closing basis. Technically, also it has closed above its 20-day exponential moving average. So one can buy CDSL towards 1215, 1210, that range, keeping a stop loss of 1180 and a target of 1260 can be seen. The second buy comes in from the IT space. Interestingly, I've seen Coforge give a very strong close above its 200-day exponential moving average. Also, it has given a good option chain breakout above the 7650 mark. So Coforge, if it's able to take out a 7750, 7760 resistance intraday today, one can buy in those levels, keeping a positional stop loss of 7600 and a target towards 8000 plus levels can be seen.
All right, so those are Soni's picks. Couple of them, CDSL as well as Coforge, to watch out for in trade today. Now, we've already discussed quite a few stocks, but let's bring you the profit watch list, things that you should watch out for in trade today. The first, of course, we've already spoken about. Godrej Properties has acquired a 10-acre parcel of land in Bengaluru, and there are a variety of projects that they will likely launch in this space. It's a very large land parcel, so watch out for it in trade today. NCC has gotten an order worth 1,480 crore rupees, and this is also a thumbs up. You have Power Mech, which is one order is worth 579 crore rupees. REC, you have a brokerage note here. CLSA sees a 22% upside in the stock. Ajanta Pharma, Axis Cap has initiated with an ad rating. The domestic business is what they're looking at very closely. NTPC, Macquarie is seeing a 35% upside for this particular stock and says that the next thing to watch out for would effectively be the nuclear update, if at all. Precision Wires has entered the copper waste recycling in Gujarat. This is also a positive development. MSTC has gotten a 2-year e-auction service contract from Coal India. And Alembic Pharma, Gujarat's Karakhadi API facility, has cleared the US FDA inspection, and quite a few pharmaceutical companies reacting positively to an all-clear chit from the US FDA.
I suppose so. Now, all right, JP Morgan has released a note detailing the impact of reciprocal taxes on India, which sectors will benefit, which sectors will feel the brunt. And, you just spoke about Alembic. So pharma is definitely one of them. Mihika is giving us all the details. Mihika, pharma, auto and metals in focus.
Yeah, we have 3 sectors in focus that, are, in the limelight amid the reciprocal tariffs. For auto, JP Morgan says there'll be an indirect impact on the demand. For metal, there's negligible impact on earnings because of our export exposure to the US. And for pharma, the uncertainty regarding tariffs still looms. Let me start with the auto pack first. Well, the US tariffs will have an indirect demand impact, and that's the biggest worry as per the brokerage. However, the reciprocal tariffs should not materially impact the attractiveness of Indian auto component exports. In terms of, when you go company-wise, you have Samvardhana, Motherson, and 18 to 20%, constituent of revenue coming from the US, but the company does have local presence, and the tariffs risk mainly come from Mexico and potentially the EU market for Samvardhana. But the company has back-end supply chain linkages from Mexico and Canada, and some of its OEM customers do export end products from the EU into the US. For Apollo Tyres, if I had to speak, there's negligible exposure to the US, and Bharat Forge and Sona BLW, well, 40% of their revenues do come from the US, and revenues could be impacted because of exports from India itself. Now, moving on to the metal pack, well, on the steel space, the impact on the earnings is negligible. This is because the US comprises only of 2.5% of our total steel exports to the world, and the rise in US hot rolled coil prices, which is basically US steel prices, stand marginally positive for something like a JSW Steel. From the aluminium space, well, aluminium exports to the US do stand higher at 9.7%. Hindalco's exports in the US are negligible because they already have presence as in the form of Novelis, which is a neutral to positive impact. But for Nalco, who is the largest exporter of aluminium India, that company may have to redirect its exports to other regions. Lastly, when you talk about the impact on pharma, the tariff uncertainty continues to loom. JP Morgan does prefer hospitals and domestic focused stocks. The India generics packs is at the risk because, however, US does have a higher US import dependence, so there are talks on how the tariffs may not be in focus for the companies, but the API and CDMOs are relatively placed in a more stronger position. And JP Morgan also believes that a 10% tariff would be met by less resistance than something like a 25% tariff or anything higher. But there are limiting mitigating factors. Not all the companies have a manufacturing presence in the US, and it's not very easy or viable to shift a plant. In terms of stocks, well, Zydus, Lupin and Dr. Reddy's have the highest exposure in terms of the US. So that's why JP Morgan is recommending investors to position themselves in domestic focused names like a Mankind Pharma as well as an Abbott India. And they're also mentioning some hospital names like Max Healthcare, Fortis, Apollo Hospitals as well as a Rainbow.
All right, thank you. That was a comprehensive piece there, Mihika. You know, Nirav, I want to come back to you. You were talking just broadly about tariffs, and April 2nd is D-Day, reciprocal tariffs. Now, the thing is, India is widely not expected to be as impacted, but President Trump, in every conversation on reciprocal tariffs, doesn't fail to talk about India. So, in terms of impact stocks and sectors, do you see a major, maybe negative mood if some reciprocal tariffs do come into place in that week?
Well, it's quite possible that there might be a slight disappointment because on the basis of whatever cues we had received in the past. And I think, as you rightly pointed out, some sectors in the auto ancillary space or the pharma space where the generics are likely to get impacted, I think they are going to be in for some kind of disappointment. Chemical makers are likely to face some disappointment. But I think it is likely to be something which is very, very transitory and likely to settle down after a brief period.
Right. So that's a fundamental view coming in there. Soni, let me take a whole host of stocks which could see an impact. Now, if you see names like Bharat Forge or Sona BLW, all of them have been under pressure in 2025, down to the range of almost around 15 to 20%. Now, taking the date of 2nd April into consideration, what are charts indicating? Are you seeing further selling pressure, or the charts tell you that, yes, this could be probably a phase of consolidation?
So, for Bharat Forge, the charts do indicate at something different. Rather, it has taken out the strong resistance of 1120. It's sustaining above it. So there could be some intraday negative impact, maybe some, move towards 1150, 1140 odd range. But then if overall the monthly expiry happens anywhere above the 1120 mark, positionally the stock can head towards the 1300 level in the subsequent series. So it's very important to watch out for these levels. Immediate resistance still stands towards the 1200, 1210 mark. It needs to take out that resistance for any upside move. Talking about the Sona BLW, then I think that stock also is looking on similar chart lines. There is a resistance towards a 520 odd level. So if that level is taken out, then the next resistance towards 580 levels can be seen on a positional basis. Very interesting because it's holding on to the 500 mark. So I think risk reward ratio, it could be favorable, but then wait for the 520 resistance to be taken out for any upside move.
Okay, so Sona BLW in focus, and you're going to see some of those tariff impacts. The other impact that you're going to see possibly today is on IndusInd Bank. Now, so much happening. What we are learning is that IndusInd Bank's board will need to come up with replacements for CEO Sumant Katapalya by October at least. The bank board will submit the new names by September. My colleague Vishwanath joins in with more details. So, Vishy, it's been an eventful weekend for IndusInd Bank. First with that Reuters report that claimed that they were asked to step down. The bank comes in and refutes that, saying there's no such directive that they have received. What are we learning?
So, Tamanna, what we come to understand from our sources is that the Reserve Bank of India's messaging in this entire thing has been clear. So, they gave a one-year extension to Sumant Katapalya. This was the second truncated term that was given to Sumant Katapalya. The messaging is clear that we need a new CEO at the bank. That is what our sources are telling us, that the RBI's messaging. Remember that when I say messaging, I'm saying that this is not written in black and white, but indicated in no uncertain terms that this change needs to happen. And that's why the board has about 6 to 7 months to finalize potential successors. They need to send 3 names to the RBI. So the RBI has some time before Sumant Katapalya's term ends in March to decide who will actually take over from him. And of course, once a new CEO is appointed, the old CEO has to step down. That's part and parcel of this entire process. What the RBI is also waiting for is clarity on the entire accountability exercise in this process. Remember that on the 20th of March, the board of IndusInd Bank had said that we are appointing another external agency to come in, look at the gaps in the balance sheet, look at who is responsible for these issues because of which the bank has to take a financial hit in Q4, and then assign the accountability to the right person. Once the board receives the report of this external agency, they will adopt the report at the board level and then send it to the RBI. And the RBI then takes a call on what action they need to take. Of course, this process is going to take some time, at least a few weeks before it gets concluded. But the RBI's first concern is to fix the balance sheet issues. Second, to ensure that a proper succession process is in place at IndusInd Bank. And then assign the blame to whoever is responsible for this gap.
Vishy, thanks so much for getting us those latest updates. Of course, another stock that you should watch out for in trade today. We'll get you the fundamental view as to what you should do if you're holding. But after this very quick break, do stay tuned. Viewers, please take a note. Motilal Financial Services 11th Ideation Conference kicks off today, and you can catch that exclusively on NDTV Profit. All of that action from the SMID space and much, much more. We will also be speaking exclusively to market veteran Ramdev Agrawal today at 10:30 a.m., so you should look out for that interview. Conversations will be lined up over the course of the day, of course, but that is going to be a highlight of the morning. Do stay tuned. Lots more coming up, starting with pre-open. Welcome back. You're watching India Market Open. It's a positive uptick at the start of the trading week, building on gains possibly from last week. Let's see where that settles in the pre-open session. In the meanwhile, let me go across to Neerav Ashar, because we were speaking about IndusInd Bank. We got you exclusive details of the fact that the RBI has likely nudged the bank to find a replacement for Mr. Katapalya, the Chief Executive Officer, by October. Neerav, the question really is twofold. One, there seemed to have been buying towards the end of last week. Maybe bargain hunters are out there. What should prospective bargain hunters be aware of? Because the market does not like uncertainty, and that is the definition of what IndusInd Bank is going through right now. And the second is, if you've held on, you've seen substantial erosion of capital, do you bite the bullet now and sell?
Well, at this point of time, I think all those people who want to buy should enter in only with a long-term horizon, because there's a lot of uncertainty in the near term which we see. One is regarding the discrepancies in the derivatives transactions, plus this RBI action, plus they have ordered a forensic audit also, plus the increase in the unsecured loans. So there's a lot of uncertainty with respect to the operations. But at the same time, we've seen the management, the promoters hinting that they would be ready to infuse capital if and when it is required. So I think that could be a positive sign. It's a bank which is well established. It has got operations and it has been performing consistently well. But I think this is definitely not good news at this point of time. And I think all those people who want to enter should enter in with a minimum horizon of 1 year.
Also, as Neeraj, all those people who want to exit, those who want to enter, fine, but those who want to exit and are hoping for some relief there, is this a time to exit or hold on, considering that in another 6 months you are going to see some management change? That's a done deal, right? Because the current MD CEO only has a 1 year extension, and as per RBI rules, anyway, 6 months ahead of that you have to start giving the name. So there is going to be new management. There might be a positive take there. Is it a hold on kind of a scenario?
No, I think it's better to exit. If someone does not have that kind of a horizon, then it's better to exit immediately, because there are better options available at compelling valuations at this point of time.
Okay. All right, let's see what's buzzing this morning. RailTel in action this morning. IndusInd Bank actually 3% up in the pre-open session, but it's just been about a couple of minutes. Bajaj Finance is buzzing. I mean, actually, if you look at Bajaj Finance, Poonawalla Finance, Oracle Fin, the NBFC space is seeing a bit of action today. I want to look at what's happening with Godrej Properties and DLF as well. Whether we're seeing some kind of movement on that end. Godrej Properties about 0.5% up. The Bangalore foray is in focus. DLF about 3% up. So that's been in focus as well. But even a Muthoot Finance coming up on my screen. Let's look at Manappuram very quickly and see if some of that excitement about Bain's entry is holding. Maybe it is. Just the first ticks that we're seeing, and perhaps we'll see, this will of course settle Kush, but NBFCs, if you had to pick within NBFCs, would it be the good old Bajaj Finance? That was one of the stocks that Nirav also spoke about right at the start of the show.
For sure, as we've seen, right, the stock is at multi-year resistance and breaking above those. So these trends typically tend to stay on for some time. So 9,000 is pretty much there, practically speaking. But you're looking at 9,200, 9350 kind of moves on. Or perhaps even if what the opening is suggesting, 9,200 might be hit at open itself. But let that settle. So 9,200, 9350 are the targets to look at on the upside. If you have a position, continue to hold. If you don't, you could still enter around those 9,000 mark, around that 9,000 mark. Shriram Finance is the other one. I wouldn't really be too excited about something like a Poonawalla. Once bitten, twice shy, has a tendency of moving up and then disappointing for a long period of time. So perhaps a bit of caution on that. But other than that, yeah, I mean, take your pick. Shriram Finance, Bajaj Finance, some of these stocks could continue to gain momentum from here on as well.
Right. So that's with regards to the NBFC space. But let's actually, it's 9:05, so it's time for the big brokerage call of the day. You have Macquarie, which has maintained an outperform on NTPC. They have a target price of 475. Mahima joins in with the details. Mahima, what is the brokerage betting big on?
Right. So as you rightly mentioned, it is Macquarie has maintained outperform with the target price of 475 for something like an NTPC. What they're saying is that overall, the compelling play on India's power demand potential remains positive for NTPC. The assured ROE on thermal assets exposed to a steady medium-term regulatory regime is also overall positive for the company. Pickup in power demand continues to bode well overall for the sentiment. It is the overall upgrades to NTPC's thermal pipeline cannot be fully ruled out, and the clarity on next long-term driver, that is nuclear power, should emerge over the next 6 months is something that Macquarie is expecting. Now, lastly, they are also saying that NTPC is a part of their India Diviner Series Tactical 6. So they've added this particular counter to their India Diviner Series Tactical as well. So this is the overall picture and the reasons as to why Macquarie is bullish on NTPC.
All right, so that's a view on NTPC. By the way, this was on my list as well, and I think that the stock is reacting positive at the start. Soni, I'm coming to you specifically on Shriram Finance because Kush has mentioned this. He's more positive on this as compared to some other players in the NBFC space. But I'm wondering what you think. 1 month, 16+% gains for Shriram Finance. Would you book money if you got in a little early, or is there potential for significant upside from this point?
Alex, I think there is certainly potential upside for towards a 750 odd mark on a positional basis if you see. However, if there's any chance to enter at slight dips somewhere towards 650 to 620, that range again, so it would be ideal, and risk reward ratio would be far more favorable. 600 seems to be a very strong support on a positional basis. Hold on to the longs, maybe trail your stop losses above your cost price or somewhere towards 600 odd mark. Hold on to the levels, and a positional target towards 750 plus levels can be seen.
Okay, any of the reality stocks that you like, Soni? We talked about Godrej Properties, DLF as well after its analyst meet is buzzing. But if you look at the macro techs of the world, any of the reality stocks right now ripe for an up move in a week that could definitely be an interesting one?
I think all the reality stocks are doing pretty strong in the past 4-5 days. DLF especially, which is just about crossing the 50-day EMA today, and any move above a 720 can see it potentially going towards a 760 to 780 odd level. So I think that stock is quite lucrative from current levels, and just giving that breakout on intraday basis, so one can actually look for a positional buy trade in DLF with a stop loss of 670.
Right, so that's with regards to where real estate names are concerned. But one other aspect that we need to look at is the pharma pack. Clearly, a lot of news flow that's come in. We have SMS Pharma, where USFDA had inspected the Hyderabad facility. A Form 483 was issued for that one. Apart from that, you're looking at Ajanta Pharma also that is in focus in today's day of trade. Nirav, coming to you, how are you looking at the pharma pack? Plus, we've already spoken about the kind of impact that reciprocal tariffs could have. But do you think this is a good time to look at these counters from a valuation perspective? And if yes, which ones would they be?
Well, yes, it's time to be very selective in the pharma space. But if one were to look at stocks which have a strong potential to grow, I think one Divi's Lab is looking quite good. They have just part expansion has just begun at this point of time, and within the next 6 months we'll have the next phase of expansion which kicks in. So I think Divi's is looking quite good. The second is Dr. Reddy's Labs. From a valuation perspective, it is looking quite good. Trades at very attractive price to earnings multiples, taking into account the growth prospects. And the third we like is Piramal Pharma, which has a strong potential to grow in the next 4 to 5 years. So these are some of the stocks which we like in the pharma space.
Okay. Any interesting ideas, Kush? Look at the pre-open. We're just about settling, right? So any interesting ideas that emerge based on the initial reaction? Because in some counters, because of the kind of run that you saw towards the end of that week, you're seeing a little bit of a cool off. But the question is, do we see momentum continue in a few, and do you be wary of that?
So the opening is a bit soft on Axis Cascades Tech right now as per the pre-opening. But if you look at the move on Friday, very exciting. The stock actually closed at the high point of the day. Volume also very close or slightly above the 20-day moving average. Some consolidation had taken place on Wednesday and Thursday. So I think this move could well continue on Axis Cascades. Has actually gained a lot of ground over the last month or so. So keep this one on your radar.
Okay. Soni, anything standing out to you? And you can go into the broader market as well, because there seems to be positive bias today across the board, even in the broader end of the market. So anything looking attractive to you?
So Alex, it would be Chamal Fertilizer, very strong opening, at least what the gap up is suggesting. And if provided that it holds above this 600 mark on the gap up opening, there's a possibility that the stock is giving a very strong breakout as well on monthly, weekly charts. So the positional target can go up to 640, but intraday towards 620 mark can be seen.
Okay, I'm wondering if IT is going to be an interesting story today, simply because of how beaten down IT stocks have been through the week and have not really participated fully. Yes, there was a recovery on Friday, but have not participated fully yet in the up move. All things considered, Kush, Nifty, IT, looking interesting today, and any specifics there? An emphasis, Coforge is what you would look at, maybe?
So, can't rule out the hangover. It's just that the momentum that's there in the market is also, lifting all boats, and IT is certainly the last boat to be lifted, right, with the kind of cracks that we've seen. So some stocks that are looking interesting, I wouldn't actually go for the big names like TCS and Infosys just yet. A lot of pressure. Consolidation is healthy, but that's all you're seeing right now. So momentum's missing. So something like an FSL, a First Source Limited, we've had the stock on our radar for a while now. Even this had taken a beating, but if you see the rise over the last 4 sessions from those 275 odd levels back to those 315 levels, that's a healthy sign. So the 200-day moving average resistance comes at 320. If the opening is above that and then it sustains, then you couldn't, then you wouldn't rule out further move to 335 levels also. So FSL is something that I have on my radar, but still the caution on IT stocks remains.
Yeah, and I suppose that makes sense because it's all about banks and BFSI today again. Soni, I'm going to come back to you on Bajaj Finance. I asked Kush's view, and the reason, just look at where it's closed after the pre-open session. So we already saw that up move of, Rajiv Jain, very much part of Bajaj Finance. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. We saw that up move already in Friday's trade. But from the pre-open session, it seems like that momentum may continue. What would be your take, Soni?
I think it will continue. Technically also looks quite strong. The stock has a good support of 8,800 on a closing basis. If it holds up to that level, then perhaps, it can even cross the 9,200 mark, head towards 9,400. There's no signs of any profit booking or exhaustion or a reversal, trend reversal as of now. So I think continue to be a buy on dip structure. So hold on with the 8,800 stop loss.
All right, so it's looking like a good picture, at least at the start. Let's see how it opens, just about a minute and a half away. But 49 gainers at this point, of course, just at the close of the pre-open, a lot of that could change very dramatically. Reliance Industries looking strong at the start and contributing quite a bit at this point to the up move for the Nifty 50. Quick comment, Kush, opportunity here, would it finally play catch up?
A very high probability of that happening. And on an immediate basis, you're looking at targets of 1290 once that is taken out, a 1320 as well. That's because consolidation has taken place. But in the last week, you've seen good, volume action also, come in Reliance. So not a bad idea to play for momentum, but about 1.5%, 2% kind of gains on this one. Stop loss at 1255.
Okay. And in the banking space, we've spoken about ICICI Bank consistently, but would you hold off, Soni? Very quick answer, 50 seconds left. Would you hold off on making fresh positions? The stock is looking strong at the start today as well.
I think, yes, maybe, look for a dip towards 1320 to reinitiating any longs, and somebody who would have already bought it from the 1210 odd levels, it's a very strong gain. So one can book profits and wait for the profit booking and then again reinitiate it on declines.
Okay, top call, Soni, before we hit that opening rate.
So I'll continue with CDSL, which has been, which also looks strong opening. So I think I'll continue with that with the 1260 odd, target. Okay,
Kush, what about you? What would be your top call?
Yeah, I'd go with Nava, the stock that we discussed as one of the opening picks. 495.03 target, 465, 455. That zone remains as a stop loss.
Okay, CDSL, Nava, a lot of ideas to work on today. You have ideas across the board. Whether it comes to BFSI might be the story of this morning, and pretty decent start. You're looking, poised for the 23,500 mark as well. You're opening 0.5% up. Will we hold on? Really is the question. You have enough momentum flowing through, and yes, tariffs are looming, but the sense now that passive flows are back, FIIs are back. The FII figure on Friday is an important one. I think you've hit the 23,500 mark on open, if I'm not mistaken, and then maybe come back a bit on the Nifty. So watch out for that. The Bank Nifty could be the story of the morning as well, about 0.5% up right now. I'm going to pull up the heat map before we get to Alex on the broader markets and what's happening there. Larsen and Toubro in focus this morning. So is Power Grid, NTPC. A lot of infra plays that we're seeing right on top. Kotak Mahindra Bank looking decent. As well. Look at the gap though. What I'm liking on the screen is that it's largely green, and at the lower end you have, even if you have an Ultratech, It's not even a quarter of a percentage points down. So a tight range over there, but a very good screen this morning. You have an Adani and also in the top row coming in Bajaj Finance in focus, but Larsen and Toubro might just be the hero of this morning along with the power grid. The broader market's also looking fairly good, Alex.
Very good. In fact, once again, they're outperforming the benchmark, Tamanna, and gains holding at this juncture. 0.9% for the mid-cap index. So also pull up the small-cap index to look at where that is. So more gains here. And if we can, I want to pull up the Nifty Next 50 as well, because this is an index to watch out for in the large-cap space. We don't talk about it enough, in my opinion. It is gaining quite considerably. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, also beating the benchmark Nifty 50. But let's talk about the sectoral indices as well. There you go, 1.2% here for the Nifty Next 50. Let's pull up the sectoral heat map just to show you what is moving in trade today. Realty up and about in trade, gaining about 2% or so. You have energy as a pack that's doing reasonably well. Defense is doing okay. Nifty oil and gas, we spoke about a few of those gas counters that you should put out on your radar. You have infra that's doing well. It's green across the screen, and even the FMCG index is gaining about 0.25%. So no red at this juncture. And I would hazard a guess to say that the market breadth favors the advances very, very heavily this morning. Let's take a look at some of the individual names that you should keep on your radar, and we'll get into the list. Godrej Properties. It's set to acquire or has acquired 10 acres of land in Bengaluru. The stock is up about 2% or thereabouts. Prospects are looking interesting. We did point out that you should watch that carefully, and in fact IT might be a key signal for you there. NCC has won an order and it's up and about in trade today. A couple of these counters reacting very strongly to order wins. NCC and Patnaik both up and about in trade. Patnaik especially gaining about 6% in trade today. REC, here CLSA has an upside potential of as much as 22%, and quite a few of the reactions to the brokerage notes have come through. REC gaining about 2%. Ajanta Pharma also on the back of an Axis Cap initiation with a buy, gaining about 0.8%. NTPC holding on to gains up about 2% or so. Precision Wires has entered a copper waste recycling business in Gujarat. It's up and about as well, 3% higher at this juncture. MSTC has gotten a 2-year e-auction service contract from Coal India, and let's see how that is doing. Let's pull that up if we can. And in the meanwhile, let's also talk about Alembic Pharma, right? So MSTC up and about. Alembic Pharma, by the way, this is on the back of gains that were made last week as well. Remember, it ended with gains of about 14%. The stock has reacted positively today as well on account of the fact that it has completed the inspection of the US FDA without observations.
Okay, let's take a look at what else is buzzing today, and pretty much it's an exciting morning. 23,500 has been reclaimed and reclaimed decisively this morning. So the lead over there, I think, and we should pull up all the sectoral indices right now. The lead will be across the broader markets as well, and with Nifty Bank Nifty nearly 0.75% up. So that's where all the action is right now. You know, I'm just going to get a first call from Kush. The kind of opening that we've seen above 23,500, staying above 23,500, what is the day looking like for you? This is a good time to review your calls for the day. And is this a buy at 23,500?
For the Nifty, no. I mean, nothing has changed from the last 30 minutes to now. I mean, even though the opening is strong.
The opening has changed. Nothing has changed except new data coming in.
No, I would have expected resistance around the 23,500, 23,600 mark anyway, and the day.
Yeah, but it's not showing right now. I mean, say for the next few minutes looking pretty bold. So you're saying, hang on.
Oh, absolutely. If I was saying the risk-reward ratio is not favorable at 23,350, it's most certainly not favorable at 23,500.
Okay.
So I would still wait on. I mean, if you have a position, continue with the trailing stop loss, that's not an issue. But yeah, you have to wait for a dip for any kind of a fresh buy. Again, don't chase momentum. It's not a very healthy sign, because you might just end up being trapped. To put it very simply. Yeah, absolutely.
So, but Kush, on a closing basis, right? If you have to see sustainability, what should that level be on Nifty and Bank Nifty that one should be watching out for?
Do you mean to enter afresh? Or
Yes, to enter afresh.
That's a very good question. I would look at levels of closer to 23,200, 23,150 because the put base has now actually bumped up and has come to 23,000, 23,100 thereabouts. So closer to the support zone is where you want to buy on the Nifty. When it comes to Bank Nifty, that has come up now to 49,500, 50,000 odd levels. So maybe a dip closer to those support zones is where you consider fresh buying. Momentum there for sure, so you hold on, but with a trailing stop loss. Fresh buying not really suggested. As far as stocks go, one very interesting name, and I want to caveat that with the fact that one, we've mentioned this on our advisory as well. Two, this is a relatively low volume stock. I generally don't discuss low volume stocks, but this stock has seen pretty good institutional activity as well, which is Kalyani Steels. The stock has had a phenomenal run right up until November to early December last year, but then just fallen off the cliff, practically half. But it's now starting to form a base, come up. Last quarter you saw some institutional activity also in this one. So this is a long-term bet for targets of about.
Is important this morning, but we've been talking about
also in this one to had a fatigue stock. I generally don't. One, we've mentioned this on our advisory as well. Two, this is a relatively levels. So maybe a dip closer to those support zones is where you consider fresh buying. Momentum there for sure, so you hold on, but with a trailing stop loss. Fresh buying not really suggested. As far as stocks go, one very interesting name, and I want to caveat that with the fact that one, we've mentioned this on our advisory as well. Two, this is a relatively low volume stock. I generally don't discuss low volume stocks, but this stock has seen pretty good institutional activity as well, which is Kalyani Steels. The stock has had a phenomenal run right up until November to early December last year, but then just fallen off the cliff, practically half. But it's now starting to form a base, come up. Last quarter you saw some institutional activity also in this one. So this is a long-term bet for targets of about 900 and higher, with a stop loss around the 750 mark. But as I said, the volumes are thin, so just be a little cautious. If you're planning to invest, you might want to just stagger your buying rather than jump all in.
Okay, so cautiousness is important this morning, but we've been talking about banks. I was so excited to ask the question, my tongue got tied. Nirav, we've been speaking about banks. Gains of about 0.9%, and we're at 3-month highs for the Nifty Bank. But we haven't spoken about PSU banks, because if we're talking about the valuation metrics, ultimately there's always been attractiveness in the PSU banking space, and we've not spoken about the likes of SBI, something even like maybe a PNB or a BOB. Is there an opportunity at this juncture to deploy fresh?
Well, definitely, valuations are looking quite attractive as far as the PSU banks are concerned, and there is also a possibility of a good dividend yield going forward. So I think the frontline banks, some of the smart performers, I think State Bank of India or Bank of Baroda or Canara Bank or Union Bank, they definitely warrant attention.
A few of the banking names. One stock that Tamanna was also just mentioning right now was a Finolex Pipes. Now that stock is seeing gains of 8.5%. No major news flow that's coming in on this one. Soni, what are you making of this? Do you see buying opportunity further after a 7% upside on a Finolex?
I don't track the stock, but then on charts, it seems to have crossed its 10 and 20-day exponential moving average. It looks decent. In fact, the next level of resistance is towards its 50 exponential moving average, which is towards 195. If it holds on to the 180 support on a closing basis today, positionally, it may test towards 195 odd levels.
Right, so that's Finolex Industries. 3 other stocks which are in the limelight right now is a KFin Tech, which is seeing a strong move. You have Nuvama, CAMS, CDSL and BSE, which become absolutely important to watch out for as well, because once the markets move, these are the ones which are in focus. Nirav, any view in terms of stocks which are related to the capital markets, because CDSL is on Soni's top list right now, but from a fundamental perspective, where would your bets be?
Well, that's true. Once the markets start moving, some of these stocks definitely start buzzing. In fact, all of them start buzzing in trade. But I think some of these stocks are portfolio stocks. So we like BSE, CDSL, Nuvama in that order.
Okay. I'm going to ask this, right, Kush, because at the start of last week, there were cautionary signals that were being sent out by some of your peers. And they were saying, even midweek, when you saw significant moves for the benchmark and for the broader markets, this is a sucker's rally, be wary. Is that something that continues to be the case, or do you disagree?
Well,
those are the words that they used.
Yeah, and that's why the pause, and that's why the hitch before answering that. Suckers rally is too big a word right now. The reason I am cautious is because the momentum is now stretched. Correct. Now, the suckers rally would be when we give up all of these gains, look at the lows around the 20,000 mark and fall below those, right? That would make it a suckers rally. Are there indications for that? A very low probability, but you can't completely deny that. What's very clear is that in the very near term, and by that we mean daily basis, couple of days time frame, the index is definitely overheated. So do you go out and buy? No. Hence, so I wouldn't subscribe to the suckers rally theory yet, but also the fact that yes, I mean there is momentum. If you want to play it, you go out and play. But
what is the RSI indicating?
That's the problem, Alex. If you look at the daily charts or the daily setup for most of these technical indicators, they will point north. But if it were as simple as just looking at the data, I mean, everyone would perhaps do it, right? And that is why some insights, and you have to dig further deep into the data. What RSI is indicating, RSI is currently at 65. Now, you would say above 60, above 50, 55 levels, you've got this good momentum going. The index is also showing that price action, right? So for most of the data points, if I were to plot 10 data points, 7 of them would indicate positivity. And that's why you just have people going out and buying. Right? It's not as easy.
Because the RSI has bounced from 40 or sub 40 levels.
Absolutely. Above 50, which is a neutral zone, I actually consider it 55, 60. Above that, the momentum picks up. We're seeing that in the markets, right? But then you break it down. You look at the hourly charts, right? RSI is above 80, 83. Now, that is seriously overheated. And now you're starting to see, negative divergences, which is not a healthy sign.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about a few more stocks from the broader markets, and we've spoken about a few pockets, right? And one of the picks in the hospitality space that Nirav Ashar pointed out to was Indian hotels. And Soni, I'm just curious about what you think about that entire space, because we tend to speak about the larger names, but then we oftentimes don't remember that there are several options in the hospitality space now to talk about. So anything looking interesting on the charts from there?
So Alex, only from the F&O space, Indian Hotel is the only stock which is actually in the F&O space. And Indian Hotels, it has given a good breakout. It holds above the 800 mark. Of course, it has seen a very strong bounce back from the 700 odd levels. I think that is a good, healthy sign. Stock is heading towards 860, 890 plus levels positionally. So keep adding on those dips as long as 800 is holding on a closing basis on chart. So I think that is very important as a stop loss, as a support, and positionally it can head towards 860 and 890 odd levels.
Oh yeah, in fact, if you recall, EIH Limited, this is one stock that we discussed last week for a second target of 385. That's been hit and stock is sustaining above that. It's only the 200-day moving average around the 390 mark that's acting as a bit of a resistance. But otherwise, the move on this one has been good. And just one last thought, Alex, if you recall, last week when we spoke about the capital good names, is when I mentioned that the Power Mix and the Jyoti CNCs of the world are looking at on a much stronger footing than the Siemens and ABBs and Thermaxes of the world, right? And you're seeing that move now. Now my suggestion would be to take some money off the table. You've got a gap up opening after a good run. Some resistance is acting up. So if you have Power Mech and Jyoti CNC from a trading perspective, now would be a good time to take some money off the table.
Right, so that's with regards to where a Jyoti CNC goes. Power Mech projects, let's pull up that one on the screens. On the back of an order win, that stock did see some smart moves. There you go. 4% up move coming in on that one. Kush, what are charts indicating? Any buying opportunity? I think we just mentioned about Power Mech. Sorry, I missed that one. But apart from that, let's pull up a Godrej Properties once again with a DLF and a Loda and see if the uptick is maintained right now. No, I mean, Godrej has given up some bit of gains. It's up now 0.7%. DLF as well. again, real estate does not seem to be holding up, but railway companies are doing pretty okay. So you have the likes of an Urcon or a Railtel, RVNL. These few names have been on the limelight. Soni, coming to you on railway stocks. Railtel is up almost around 7.5%. Any picks coming in there?
I think yes, the entire space is doing comparatively better in the past 3-4 sessions. Railtail is just crossing its 50 EMA, so one can actually look, forward to buying at current levels as well, and maybe on slight declines towards 327. That's the range one can initiate a short-term trading, perspective for the longer side. The targets from current level seems to be 360 as a first target. If that is taken out, it sustains above it, it can even head towards 380. Immediate basis 315 is a good support. One can hold on with that support stop loss.
Okay, Railtel in focus. I'm wondering, Nirav, if you would look at railway stocks again, and I want to pull up Ircon. There was negative news actually on Ircon today in terms of some challenges to their balance sheet, not challenges to the balance sheet, but actually a demand that had come on them, but 3% up on the stock. Railway seems to be back in focus after a long time. Nirav, would you look at railway stocks favorably?
I think I have to wait for the results, for the Q4 results to come out and the commentary from these companies because they've won some good orders. So the momentum is back, but I think I'll wait for the results. And I think one particular stock in the railway space, which is recently listed, is Transrail. It's looking quite exciting from a medium to long-term perspective.
Transrail. Okay, we had an interesting conversation with Transrail as well. Thank you so much, Nirav. Thank you so much, Soni. Thank you so much, Kush, for joining in today. We have an interesting set of conversations lined